It's a time of change as autumn descends along with the leaves. There's a bit of everything to keep us busy, a little tidying up and clearing away, ongoing harvests, and a few things to set you up for next season. We've got 10 essential jobs to complete, so we'd best get cracking. Winter salads and hardy Asian greens like tatsoi will slow down considerably in growth as the weather gets colder. Now we can extend the season by simply deploying row covers such as fleece or cloches. I'm going to protect this lot with a miniature polythene tunnel. I've made corner posts from cut down bamboo canes and I'm just popping one into each corner of the bed. And then over the top of them I'm going to make the arches for our tunnel, and this is just blue alkathene water pipe, and again I've cut it to size by kind of measuring it out and just pop that over the little bamboo canes like that, and there we go, it's nice and rigid and upright. These arches are pretty sturdy as they are, but just to add extra rigidity, and I'll demonstrate how, you could use a cane like that on the underside so it doesn't flail around, and then tie that in with a bit of string. What a clear plastic sheet like this will also do is help keep the soil much drier at what can be a very wet time of year. Now, whenever the weather is slightly milder, it's worth just opening up either the sides or the ends a bit to let air in there to get some airflow. And that's really important because if it's stagnant air for too long, that can encourage moulds or plant diseases, and obviously we don't want that. The leaves of winter squash and pumpkins may be looking pretty tatty by now. Most may have even died off. It's time to gather up and bring home the harvest haul. To ensure your fruits store for as long as possible, they will first need curing. To cure your fruits, just lay them out somewhere warm and well ventilated for them to toughen up and the skins to turn hard over a period of about 1 to 2 weeks. A greenhouse bench like this is ideal. Properly cured squash should store for anywhere from 2 to 6 months. Shorter days and cooler temperatures leave us with a quandary. At what point do we call it a day and gather in the last of the green tomatoes? The optimal temperature for ripening tomatoes is from about the late 60s to mid 70s Fahrenheit or 20 to 25 degrees Celsius. So as temperatures drop significantly below this point, ripening is going to slow right down to a crawl. Now, light has very little effect on tomato ripening, and actually strong light can even inhibit it, so there's little point removing leaves from around tomatoes, which may do more harm than good. Instead, gather late season fruits and bring them indoors to finish ripening. Fruits that are showing a hint of colour can be popped into a fruit bowl along with other riper fruits such as these bananas here, which will give off ethylene gas and help them to fully ripen up. If your tomatoes aren't showing much colour, then a little trick is to pop them inside a closed environment like a bag or a cardboard box along with one of those bananas. And this will trap more of the ethylene gas to increase the chances of the tomatoes ripening. And then just check on your tomatoes every now and then and remove any that are ready to enjoy. Once all these tomatoes have finished cropping, I will lift them up, and then this space here will make an ideal position for more winter salads. And look, if your tomatoes do stay stubbornly green, then do try some recipes that use them up. For example, fried green tomatoes, or how about a sumptuous green tomato chutney? Do check out our video featuring these recipes, linked down below. Most years I will leave root crops like carrots just where they are in the ground to dig up as needed. But if a long, particularly cold spell is forecast, then you might want to cover the area with, say, leaves or straw or just extra row covers to keep the ground diggable for longer. But if you get really cold winters where you are, where the ground remains frozen solid or covered in snow for months on end, then dig up your carrots while you still can, and then just twist off the foliage and layer them into boxes of damp potting mix or sand, and the potting mix can be any old thing. And then just layer them up, covering each successive layer with more of that old potting mix or sand. It's important that the roots aren't touching, because one bad root could then pass on the rot problem or whatever it is to the next root. Once you're done, store your roots in a cool, frost-free place, and this method works well with carrots, beetroots and parsnips. Has your growing season been fantastically fruitful? Well, most fruits will be winding down about now. The last to finish fruiting are the likes of late season apples and pears, but don't let this final flourish of fruits go to waste. To check if a fruit is ready to pick, simply cup it in your hands, lift it slightly and twist. It should come away easily in your hands, and watch out for flies too. Pick what you can before winter brings the shutters down on this abundance. And late season varieties are often the very best for storing. Wrap clean, intact, blemish-free apples and fruits, not ones you've dropped, individually in newspaper and pack them into breathable boxes, then store them in a cool but frost-free place. Now, for more on storing and processing apples, check out our video on that, link in the description below. Now we're heading into autumn, you need to switch tack. We want to go from shading the heat of the summer sun to letting in as much sunshine as we possibly can. So take the time now just to wash off any remnants of any shading that you might have applied, and then get on and give everything a really good scrub using just nothing more than soapy water. Clean the glass inside and out, and of course inside is going to be easier to clean once all your summer crops have been cleared, so you can do this any time in the autumn. Don't forget cold frames as well, and if you have a power washer, well, that's going to make the job a lot quicker. Do you ever get the feeling we're on the cusp of something big? I am convinced that garlic is going to be the next big thing, and to me it certainly deserves to be, given all of the varieties and the fact this really is a bulletproof crop. This is the remnants of my summer harvested garlic, and I'm really enjoying it. But if you want to get on and plant it, well, I would get on and order your garlic right now before it sells out. And we will be covering how to plant it in our next Sow This Now video, which is out in a few weeks' time. Of course, the best choice is going to be found online, with some companies specialising solely in this unapologetically pungent bulb. When choosing your garlic, do bear in mind there are two types. Hardnecks produce fewer but larger cloves, and they are super hardy. They also produce edible flower stalks that look superb on the plate, and these are called scapes. Softnecks, on the other hand, produce more cloves, though these tend to be a bit smaller than the hardnecks. Their trick, however, is storing super well, extending the usefulness of this must-grow crop. The autumn leaf fall is around the corner, and the wise gardener will be making plans to make the most of this annual windfall. Now, I just leave most leaves where they fall on sort of beds and grass and so on. They soon rot down into the ground, but it's worth raking them up from paths and terraces and other areas that might get a bit slippery. All you need is a trusty springtime rake and of course a wheelbarrow to gather them up and move them to the compost heap. If you have lots of leaves or access to them, then it's worth making your own leaf mould, a superb soil conditioner that will help to improve its health and structure. To make it, simply pile your leaves into some sort of cage, and that's just to stop them from blowing away. Pile them in, and if it's a bit dry, then give it a water as well. The more leaves you can get in there, the better, because that will help with the overall decomposition. This cage is perhaps a touch on the small side. One's 3 foot or a metre wider, even better. Now, fully decomposed leaf mould, which is what we call the broken down leaves, will be ready within about 2 years, but you will have something useful to spread onto your beds after just 1 year. If you don't have much space, then another option is to pile your leaves into black sacks, tie them off and punch them all over for good airflow. Then just stack them somewhere out of the way until the leaf mould is ready. Cut back Jerusalem artichokes or sunchokes to within a few inches of the ground. These stumps that are left will help you to identify where the tubers are below ground when you come to lift them during the winter. Here you can see my asparagus, and once it's died and gone yellowed, I'll cut it right back down to here. I've been very patient in not harvesting this since I planted it 2 years ago, but next spring it should be my first crop and I cannot wait. Cut back or remove dead or yellowed leaves as the cold begins to make a bit of an impact. The leaves of rhubarb, for example, often turn into a gloopy slop and can just be kind of gathered up and dumped onto the compost heap. With so much coming off the compost heap, it's worth asking the question, could I do with extending my composting setup? Now, having 2 compost heaps or bays is really useful because once one is full up, you can leave it to mature and get on and fill the second. You can see my compost here is well and truly filled up, so I'm going to leave it to mature while I go on and fill up the now empty compost heap down there. Now, if you can, it's worth setting your compost bays or heaps side by side. Making compost bays can be very simple. This one was simply made from 3 pallets lashed together with thick gauge wire. And if you look down here, you can see how I've anchored the walls into place. I've just hammered in sections of rebar to kind of pinch the wall to keep it nice and sturdy. You've got to love compost. It's the lifeblood of any garden. And if you would like to make it as quickly as possible, then head on over to this video next. Keep on gardening, and I'll catch you next time.